Hi, my name is Keenan Duke, and I'm a screenwriter. I played baseball and like sports all my life. Like I wasn't even writing was never on my mind. It wasn't until I got hit in the face with a fastball and like broke my cheekbone in two different places and fractured my nose. Like I tried to come back from that, and even though I continued playing, I wasn't quite the same. Thinking about playing in the pros, and so after that happened, I kind of knew it was over from there. And so I was like trying to figure out what I was gonna do for the rest of my life, and just like laying in bed and just like thinking back on like what I liked in general. Television and films came to mind, and I was thinking about a show that I'd love to see wasn't out there. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should like learn how to write. And so that's what basically got me into writing. Like I went into film school, I moved up to Vancouver, went to like a writing program. And yeah, that's what got me into writing. I was injury in sports. I'll write sports stories, but just in general, like anything that interests me tends to be like kind of darker things, oddly. Like I'll write anything that's kind of like grounded and reality and like touching on like any sort of like issues that I feel are not like shown enough, but like try to do it in an interesting way. So yeah, I would say my writing process is once I come up with an idea, which is usually kind of premise based, the way I usually come up with ideas, it's usually based off of something that's out there already, like an issue or just a subject in general. So it's usually a premise that I'll come up with first. And then like I'll just do a ton of research on whatever that thing is. I wrote an idea for a show that was set in Brazil. So I did like a ton of research on everything that was going on around like not only the city, like all the corruption, like all of that stuff, and in the World Cup because it was like set around that time. So I just did like a ton of research, and then from there I'd create the characters and sort of what the story is, and kind of move from there to where like by the time I go to the page, like everything's just like kind of like secondhand nature, and I'm just kind of like writing on autopilot, always just getting through that first draft. Like I think the first draft's always like the toughest because it's not going to be like the greatest thing like that's it, that's hit the page. And so like for me it's always just kind of like shoveling it in, just trying to like get everything out onto the page, because like I've found that I'm pretty good at like revising, like, and whenever something is on the page then I can like work off of that and like do wonders, but it's just getting it on the page in the first place. I think that's always the hardest part for me. You're gonna laugh at this. So if I could write for any franchise out there, it would be Street Fighter. I told them kind of like all like it's just whatever interests me, but like I would always like bring them down, like kind of ground them to a degree. But yeah, Street Fighter, like I grew up with that my entire life. Like I used to absolutely love playing that video game. I loved all the characters, like that whole world was just like so cool to me. I remember like I used to draw a lot, and so like seeing that art style, I was just like, wow, that's like it looks so cool. And I would draw all the different characters. Like I would like I had those video games, and so like I would read like the character bios and I would draw the characters. I even order shirts to this day like that have like the characters on. There's like a boxing company that like creates Street Fighter wear, and I like buy like every single one of their shirts. And I just think that world is so rich with characters and different stories that you could tell, that's what I would want to bring to the screen. Like if I could be like the Dave Filoni of Street Fighter, like that's what I would love to be. Like that would be my end all goal, is to produce, create shows and movies for Street Fighter. Just in general, I would say I just want to write and create shows and movies that people just enjoy. In general, like I've never been one to like really won awards or like any sort of like notoriety, but just like if people watch my show or a movie and they enjoy it, then that's a win for me. Because even right now, like a lot of stuff that I watch, I feel like aren't the things that are like getting heavily like noticed as like award like type shows and movies. So but I love them, so that's all that matters. So for me, that's kind of like what I strive for. It's just, even if it may not be something that's like the Oscars are clamoring over. Like, as long as I think general audiences are, then yeah. My favorite movie is Sicario. I love that movie on so many different levels. How they're able to weave in all the sort of like nuanced issues I feel like that are out there. Like that, like to me, that movie is like the epitome of like what I would want to do, just because of like, again, like all the messages that are kind of like in there subtly. The women that go missing, like there's a scene in there where if you're not really paying attention, you might miss it, but they like touch on it and like show it, but they don't say anything. They don't make any mention of it, but they show it, and that was just like so smart to me. Like the ending is so smart. The sort of like being used to violence and how people just like go about their day like once something happens. And then television show, I would say, which again kind of like shows my sort of like whatever it is, as an anime show called Samurai Champloo, which is done by the same director who did Cowboy Bebop, which that show was the reason why I kind of became a writer. I saw that show and I just thought it was like really interesting watching two people like go throughout Japan like on this journey. I kind of like used that for like an idea that I had that I wanted to write when I got into writing, which was just like two slaves that escape a plantation to try and get north, because going back on like my ancestry. So it's kind of like, what kind of stuff would they would have experienced like on the way. So